Well, good afternoon. Thank you so much for being here. We want to take the next 25 minutes or so and give you guys an opportunity to kind of, without anyone else here, we want to give you an opportunity to be able to talk about what you want to talk about when it comes to the kind of things that you're learning this weekend. I don't know about you, but this time, I believe even in this election year, is really pivotal. You have really got to grab onto this, avail yourself to whatever is available, but really you need to make sure that your financial picture and your financial outlook is really one of the priorities of your life. You've got a priority of God, you've got a priority of finances. There's not anything that you need more than anything else in your life than finances. As a matter of fact, it was yesterday. I was listening to a podcast, and it was a new podcast, and it was a podcast on finances. And actually, this person was really horrible with money, and what they wanted to do was they just basically wanted to have a podcast about being bad with money. And they said, and they actually said, and forgive me for my crudeness, but I'm just going to tell you what they said on this. But they actually asked, this girl went from place to place and talked to different people. And the most interesting thing was she could talk to people about their favorite sexual positions, but she could not talk to them about money. They would talk to her about sex, but they would never talk to her about their money. So what I want to do is I want to open this up, allow you guys to speak. Even if your mother taught you don't speak with food in your mouth, you'll be all right. Some of you need to go and drink a gallon of water, try to flush out the system. But let me just say right now, Garrett, thank you for being here, man. It's not enough, and we don't get to see each other enough, and I'm just grateful to know you. So thank you.
It's been awesome being here. So thank you.
Great, thank you. Let's start off. Clyde, you want to start?
Yes.
Clyde, will you stand up and speak into a microphone, please, brother?
Yes, sir.
Man, I tell you sometimes, Clyde.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much for all of the information you gave to us. What's a bad cash flow index number?
Below 50. Below 50. 50 to 100 is a danger zone, and 100 and above is efficient.
Great. Next. Yes, ma'am. Wait, Johnny. Oh. Okay, great. Thank you.
I need to know, I have a book at a publisher's right now, and I need to know how to raise money to pay the publishers. I don't want to take a loan now because I know, like he said, the banks will rip you off. So I need to know how to go about raising money to pay the publishers without going to the debt.
I would do like a Kickstarter or Indiegogo campaign. So check out Kickstarter, Indiegogo. I mean, look, when the Statue of Liberty was given to us by France, they basically just put in the newspaper, hey, we've got this statue, we want to raise funds to be able to put a concrete structure and everything, and everybody just contributed small amounts of money, a quarter here, a dollar there. And so Indiegogo, Kickstarter, those kind of things, they allow you to say, I've got a book coming out, you can pre-order it, and you get these gifts, and if you buy this many, or if you do this, so just go look on those sites, you'll find books, and they're raising money through that.
Okay, is that good for you? Okay, Joyce, sure.
Yes, I'd like for you to elaborate more about the family bank. You mentioned that earlier last night.
Okay. So I wrote about it in my new book, What Would the Rockefellers Do? And I'll make sure that everybody gets an opportunity to get a copy of that without having to just like write a check just to buy that book. I'll add it as a bonus today because it's a big topic and strategy that if I just give you the bits and pieces here, a little bit tough. The way the Rockefellers did it was they actually just used insurance contracts because a bank has to pay taxes. Insurance companies get different tax favor, but they didn't do it just like a normal insurance contract. It's something that is high, early, heavy cash value, and then they can use that cash anytime they want, and then the death benefit replenishes from generation to generation back into it. So I'll just let you, like, based upon the short amount of time, I'll let you just get the book, and it's outlined better than I could teach it. If I teach even that strategy in an hour, everybody's heads start exploding because I just go fast, and there's a lot of info on it.
For those who are supposed to, oh, you're supposed to.
Go ahead, no, you're good.
For those of us who are not not financial savvy, like how do we do a continuing education from this point on to know more and to learn more and to do better?
Will you
with our
be
finances?
here the rest of the day?
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Cool. I'm gonna completely outline that in the
Okay.
next session,
Thank
exactly
you.
what to do. So, good.
Liz.
If I come in to a settlement, like a certain amount of money, how do I know how to invest that, or who would I go to know what to do to invest it?
So, what I would say is, it should be an easy question to answer, but the problem is, like, if you don't know your investor DNA and you try to go find someone, they're just going to put you in what they know. So let me just say this. Make sure wherever you invest in, if you come into something like that, your number one emphasis is downside protection. That, you know, because people that get really wealthy putting their money in the market, usually really wealthy people store their money in the market. It's not where they're trying to earn their whole, but the middle class and everyone else gets taught that's the way to get wealthy. But that's not actually the case. I mean, there's an old saying that says, how do you end up with $1 million in the market? You start with 2, right? Everybody knows it because there's so much truth to it. So
That's not very nice. That's not.
I know. So look, there's an investment advisor that I recommend that I could just connect you to that subscribes to our philosophy, understands all of it, and just does a great job. But he's the guy that you write a check to hire to do the analysis, not necessarily put you in the investments.
I'm a widow and I received a lump sum pension from my husband, and I intended to pay off my condo with it. Is that a good idea? Because my financial advisor said no, don't pay it off.
So we have to go to, if you take that lump sum, where do you invest it? How much risk is involved in that? What rate of return is there? So remember I talked about cost of money? So you got to know what your cost of money is to know whether or not that's a good idea. If you don't know where to invest and you're just relying on your investment advisor, I would pay it off.
Okay.
If you kind of have a good idea of where to invest, how it's going to work, and how stable it is, then maybe invest it. But I just see a lot of people when they come into a lump sum of money, invest and it doesn't turn out how they thought. At least if you pay that off, you know exactly what you're getting. You know exactly what the result's going to be. You're going to save whatever interest rate, it's going to be paid off, and you're not going to have to make a payment anymore.
And then with that money, I would like to buy a foreclosure, pay cash with additional monies. Is that a good idea, or?
So it goes back to how much do you know about foreclosures and what kind of team do you have to support you. So if you don't know much about it, see, foreclosures can be a pretty onerous path. It's hard sometimes. You find it, the bank takes forever to approve it. It could eventually get, you got to make sure you have title insurance if it's a foreclosure, all this kind of stuff. And most of that's mostly automated. But the question is, see, the house isn't the asset. Houses don't write checks. People are the asset. So if you buy a foreclosure, do you know who you're going to rent it to? Are you going to be good at managing that? And how are you going to turn that into cash flow? So that's the bigger question. What I would do is if you're interested in that, I would start taking some real estate courses. I know someone here that has an awesome real estate course that you could talk to.
Oh, okay.
If you grab me, she's just sitting right over here, but she's not in the business ministry. So one of my guests.
That is my plan.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So then if you get knowledgeable, just get really, really knowledgeable about one strategy in real estate and start with just that one strategy. And have an outside advisor that's not emotional about the investment help you with it. Because the higher your emotion about something, the lower your IQ. You ever notice, like when you're really emotional about something, like when you're fighting with someone, how logical are people in the middle of a fight? Right. So if you get in love with a real estate or a deal, or worse, if someone's like, this deal's going away tomorrow because it's a foreclosure, don't ever get rushed in those kind of things. You're better out missing out on something than getting into something that's not great.
Hi.
Hi.
I have a question from last night that I didn't get to ask, and then I have a question from today. So my question from last night was, I was just saying, I may
The
have
past is in the past.
No, I still need an answer.
Say you have 2 today questions and
Okay.
it'll be fine.
So I was thinking I might have fallen into that long haul trap. I have investments with a company that I worked with in the past that they do it was like kind of a company match thing for these investments. And so I've moved on. I've been in a new place for 8 years, but I get these statements, and of course it's like basically the same balance. And so I was just wondering, would it be better to cash out or transfer it to another account, or?
Be careful about cashing out because there might be taxes and penalty. I gave advice to other people in here. You can move to a self-directed IRA. I didn't encourage someone starting one from scratch. When you already have a retirement plan, if you move it to self-directed, you could massively lower the fees, and you now can invest in almost anything you want rather than just a few very select options that normally your former employer will give you. And that's not taxable when you roll it to a self-directed.
Awesome, thank you. And then this is also related to investments. I know you repeated it already, but I still didn't hear it. So with the investment index, you were saying, so you divide the balance that you have.
What you've actually contributed, not the balance that's in there.
Okay.
What your actual dollar amount is, divided by the cash flow that's coming in from the investment.
Got it, thank you.
So the former employer, it's probably a 0, right?
Yeah, for that one.
So we want to start thinking, how can we turn that into cash flow?
I have a question about publishing, self-publishing versus trying to get a publishing deal. I have a book I finished, and actually a couple. I just finished one, and I'm debating. I really don't know which way to go. Should I try to self-publish? Should I try to get a publishing deal? It's an amazing book. It's an outstanding book. And it's...
So
Might not be the book of the decade, but it's still an
I
outstanding
like it.
book.
So here,
You know.
Publishers don't care how good the book is. It sucks to hear this, but they don't. They care about how big your marketing budget is and your platform. So your platform, like how many people are following you, where are you going to be selling the book? Because publishers aren't good at selling books. All they're good about doing is getting retail space where they can put your book in bookstores. If you go with a publisher, it's an 18-month process with a traditional publisher. So my guess is normal publishing is probably not going to be right, but there's 2 other considerations. Co-publishing, which is still a publisher that can get it inside of bookstores, but you're going to make more of the upfront investment than they are, and you get a higher back end with them. Or self-publishing. So I have a friend who's a client. His name's Hal Elrod. I would follow him. He has a book called The Miracle Morning. That thing is self-published. He's made more than any published author I know in the last 2 years. I mean, and if you just read his blogs, follow what he's talking about there, he is brilliant at the self-publishing
Great
game.
testimony. He's got a great testimony.
Yeah,
He really does.
he's such a, it's awesome. And so the other, self-published, I would say Hal's got the self-published game down the best. Elrod, E-L-R-O-D, The Miracle Morning. Phenomenal process. 82% of people that buy his book end up on his email list, so he's building a huge email list, even though he sells it on Amazon. Every time he gets a review on the book, less than 5 stars, he reads it, he takes the feedback into consideration, changes the book since it's print on demand if it's a valid suggestion, and then now if you look at how many 5-star reviews he has, and he's doing really good about getting people engaged. Now what he's doing is the Miracle Morning for Entrepreneurs, the Miracle Morning for Mothers, and he's teaming up with other people that have a platform. So he went to Cameron Herold on the Miracle Morning for Entrepreneurs. Cameron Herold was the COO of 1-800-GOT-JUNK. who now coaches high-end executives and speaks all over the nation. So he said, there's someone with a platform. Boom, he's just starting to make that. Then he licensed it to people out of the country that are now putting Miracle Morning in Korea and all these places. He is crushing it. He would be the one that I would follow, and I'd look self-published. Once you have a big self-published book, if you want a publishing deal, once you have a big platform, once you have a big marketing budget, like people that make a ton of money in books are people that have, like, okay, if George Bush wants to write a book or Barack Obama wants to write a book, they're going to get a massive deal up front because they have a huge following with major interest. It's not matter whether their books are better than your book. It's a matter of what already intrigues and interests people to buy the book. So build up a big name, build up a big platform, and then people will chase you down to do a publishing deal.
Going back to 401ks, one of the things that a lot of organizations do is they offer a matching deposit
Yep.
or opportunity. So if you don't take advantage of that, aren't you really leaving money on the table then to some extent?
That's one way to think about it. And I'm going to be real careful here because I don't want to discourage people from saving, but I just want to have you think about a couple things. When they match you the money, when do you get to access the money? There's what's called usable money, and then there's what's called paper money is what I'll call it. When you go get a loan, how much attention do the banks pay to your 401k? They don't really use that as one of your assets to help you get that loan typically, because they know that the money's not really yours. It's the government's, and it's for your benefit, so you're the beneficiary, not the owner of it. Now, taking advantage of a match is perfectly fine unless you got 20% interest rate credit cards, because the match is not 100% return. Some people say, well, if I put $1 in and they match it $1, that's 100%, but they don't match it the next year. And they don't match, the match isn't guaranteed, because if the market goes down, hey, if I flush $1 down the toilet, does the second dollar matter at that point, right? It gets flushed. You have to make sure that you have the fundamentals first, you've got your foundation handled, you're investing in yourself, and if getting that match deters you from paying off loans, investing in yourself, or living your sole purpose, the match is a distraction. If those things are handled, and they're going to give you money, especially the first year you contribute. The first year on a matched dollar is your best year, because now everything in there was 100% matched. So I like to analyze and see what the match really does. Because sometimes the match, you think, oh, well, I'm going to go from 5% to 10%. No, if you have $100,000 in your retirement plan and you're putting $5,000 a year and they're matching $5,000, it doesn't make as much difference as you would think. Because if the market even goes up 5%, if you don't manage that money, if you get 10%, that's better than getting a match, or it's the same as getting a match. So we have to look at the fundamentals underneath.
You have to, Rich, probably different for you, and I think what is it right now, Garrett, the American, the baby boomer, what is their percentage of having something when they retire at this point?
How much they have, or how prepared they are?
No,
or
how prepared they are.
It's horribly unprepared. And so the problem is, if you're 50 and you have $100,000 in retirement plan, putting $5,000 in with a $5,000 match doesn't get you very far. It doesn't have a lot of time to grow, so they're pretty unprepared. So
Yeah. Now, in contrast, let me say this: with Garrett's knowledge, that doesn't seem to make a lot of sense. But for my lack of knowledge, it makes a huge amount of sense for two reasons. One is that $5,000 that you actually put in and was matched became $10,000 that you would not have had. That's the reason why, that to me, for a person who is not astute and a person who's not necessarily in pursuit of making things really work in their life, it's a good idea to be able to have something as solid as you can, and you just have to look at your when you're vested in the system and all those other kind of things, and when you can actually begin to draw down on it. What are the government regulations on it? Is it the termination of employment? Is it all of these different things that you have to do in order to be able to access that money, or is it accessible? And then I'm sure Garrett will talk about being able to draw down off of investments that you have and all of those other kind of things. But just remember that you to have control over what you have is the number one way of handling it. Having said that, somewhere in the 80 to 85 percentile of people who are within retirement age have zero for retirement
So something would be much
in
better.
America. So something is better than nothing.
Progress over perfection.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm giving you like the ideal perfect scenario, but you're right. You just want to be in the habit. You want to be doing something.
And if somebody's going to give you $5,000 for $5,000, and you weren't probably going to save the $5,000 to begin with, but that forced savings plan, which of course is not ideal at all, has no idea, has no perfection in it whatsoever. Even though that you have that, that's still $10,000 that possibly you may access at another time. So if you can have control of your money, then have control of it. But if, in fact, you're going to get some matching kind of incomes, now, I can tell you about those things because when you're in trusts and things like that, you can make those kind of matches that you're making. But when you're in IRAs and issues like that, they don't necessarily, the way that the government has them written, they're somewhere, I think, they're almost down to 1.5% or something like that, that they'll give you on your money that you save.
So
They just defer the taxes.
we wrote a pretty interesting article in Forbes that I'd recommend you check out. There's a company that set it up where employers could match someone paying their student loans down. So some student loans are super cheap, like 2%. I'm like, put it in and get the 5% match rather than. But other student loans I'm seeing lately are pretty high, and I'm going, man. We featured the articles. I'm like, that's a cool idea. You're putting, $3,000 towards a student loan, and your employer's paying another $3,000 towards that student loan. That's pretty cool.
Pastor Robb and Garrett, thank you very much for coming here and for everything you guys have brought to us. It's been pretty amazing. A question that I would have is, if you have credit card debt and you're trying to reduce that, what are some tips, some techniques you can use to reduce the interest rates that you're dealing with the companies? Because I've looked at the numbers just recently, and it's very disappointing.
It's actually, the credit card's one of the easiest ones to do it with. So you got to pay attention. First of all, to your credit score. If it's under 780, realize that 83% of people have an error on their credit report. So if you just clean up your errors, don't do more than 3 at a time, that'll boost your credit score. There's also some things you do to boost your credit score. If you actually have a car that's paid off, I find this a lot of times where people have credit cards but that have a paid off car. 3 C's help your cash flow, or help it the most. Number 1, credit. Number 2, collateral. You get better interest rates with collateral. Credit cards are higher because there's no collateral attached to it. And 3 is good cash flow reporting, which is loan structure. So if you have a paid off vehicle and you refinance that vehicle to pay off a credit card, you're going to get a lower interest rate on a car loan than a credit card, but that's an installment loan. Installment loans on a car, you pay those on time, it boosts your credit score. A credit card lowers your credit score when you use it. A car loan boosts it. So it's just reclassifying the loans that you have. So if there's any loan that you have that you could refinance, that's one way. But if you get your credit score to a decent place, you could just call the credit card company. We had this guy, his name's Woody, at our last event, do this on a break because I was talking about it. I just said, call him and ask him for the deals department. Like, call and say, hey, do you have any deals today, or do you have any credit card deals? I'm thinking about switching. I just want to see if you guys are competitive. And then they'll move you to the right department. The first person you talk to doesn't have authority. The person they transfer you to has authority, and it's easy to get a lower interest rate because their mindset. See, one of the scapegoats in the world and one of the mindsets most people have is, I can't afford it. That's the mantra for most people. I can't afford it. So they think if you're calling, like if you call your cable company right now and say you want to cancel, it might be that you're moving, but they're just going to think you can't afford it. So their first natural inclination is say, well, what if we lower your bill? Same thing with credit cards. What if we lower your interest rate? Is their natural inclination? So you call and say, hey, look, I've got a good credit score. I've got options here, but I've been with you guys. So before I move this card somewhere else, what can you do? What's the best rate you can give me? That's the first conversation. There's deeper ones, but that's the first one.
Warren?
Yes, going back to the investment index,
I don't know if this will be as life-changing as the last time you asked me something, but we'll see.
maybe not, but,
But
you know.
I'll answer
we'll give
this
it a
investment
shot.
index, yeah.
So your return, what you get back, you're talking about annual, is that correct?
You can look
Or
at
monthly
the
or
monthly
annual?
cash flow is ideal. If you run it annually, then you need to run your cash flow index annually. You just need to make sure your investment index is comparing on the same monthly or annually. But I run it monthly on the cash flow and on the investment index. So some
Well, could
investments
you-
are
could you
paying
give me-
monthly.
Yeah, well, say you're in real estate, you buy a house, and it's.
How much money-
150,000
Uh-huh. Is that how much money you put into it?
roughly.
Okay, so
Yes.
what's coming on a monthly basis?
1575,
Is that net or gross?
that's gross.
So you got to take the net.
The net about 1275.
Okay, so 150 divided by 1275, that's a decent investment index.
Is there a number that you like to be at or below?
It's below 100.
Below 100, okay. All right, thank you.
Yeah.
They just had a conversation in code. Spoken by the insiders.
Financial tongues.
Yeah, financial tongues, that was. And, sir.
Hello. Me and my wife, we've been in business for about 10 years now, self-employed about 10 years. And we starting a new venture. And basically we are, we've been printing and marketing for the past 10 years. But now we are starting a co-working space and a nonprofit. So we're looking into getting investors to help us open this co-working space, to help the community. We did approach a bank. They had an empty bank, they're not using the location. So it was like, hey, why don't you let us use the place and you invest into us and start the nonprofit, the co-working space, as well as the nonprofit in the same building. So we're looking, what's the best way to make us look appealing to investors, the best way to possibly come up with ways of starting this co-working space to help us financially with that project.
Best way to look good to investors is find people that you've known for a long time, that know and trust you, have them be early investors so that you can actually use the early investors as evidence of why other investors should invest. That's how that game works. And then you just got to get really clear on what the value is, what the return is, what the worst case scenarios are. Because a lot of people, they don't do what's called a damaging admission. If someone comes and presents something to me and I say, what are the downsides? And they can't clearly articulate it, I'm never going to invest because I know that they don't understand worst case scenario. If you just admit what the downsides and issues are, you can actually address them versus have them leave with their money that they're not going to give you because they weren't addressed. The best way to do that, early investors that know, trust you, and have been around you for a long time that said they believed and they put the money in and using them as the case study, as the testimonial, and as the example.
Hi, my name is Michelle Burnett. Thank you for coming. This is my husband, Sean. I had another question dealing with the co-working. The building that we're looking at is bank-owned. We're dealing with the corporate structure of the bank, and they have a lease still on it, and it's leased by someone else. I wanted to know, we had talked about investors, but what is the strategy that we should use to ask for a 24-month corporate sponsorship by the bank and or the person, which is another, I think, management company, they may own the property? That was my first question. And then I had the other question was dealing with the business of your son. Could you elaborate about that a little bit? We have a 13-year-old who likes fashion, and we want to see about her doing something on Amazon related to fashion.
Yeah, amazing.com is the company. Amazing.com has the courses on how to sell on Amazon. And I mean, we have 50 clients in our program that have, done the program that are doing really well. It's a very solid program. And then on the corporate sponsorship, I don't know. I mean, I just don't know enough to be able to answer that very
That
effectively.
makes me feel good. Garrett, that makes me feel awesome. So that was a great question. That the answer to that issue is not a direct answer. The answer to that is dependent upon the responses that you get from the participants. And then that will actually change, because I think you're probably, I don't know, Garrett, what you would think, you're at least into a three-part or a successive answer that you need from people. Because they're not gonna come back at you first with something favorable that you and your husband are looking for. So what they answer to you the first time around is really gonna determine the posture. Are they going to answer? Are they not going to answer? Are they, since you're dealing with the bank, the building's been in foreclosure, there's a lease on the building, do they want to play with that? Do they want to buy these people out of their lease in order to be able to give you the building and then turn around and have a 24-month corporate sponsorship? You have to kind of decide that. Pardon? Oh, the bank was there and the bank closed. Well, then I guess maybe you can, I guess maybe you can see exactly which way that the foreclosing bank actually wants to deal with that piece of real estate. If they're wanting to get rid of that piece of real estate, you'll find a really good, some really happy people. If they don't want to get rid of that piece of real estate, that's the reason why that in foreclosures of any type, it's really a lot better to be able to go somewhere else where you find that there's something else that you can get as quickly as possible. But it's empty. This is going to be an awesome unfolding story. Unless you have something else that you want to say to that.
Pastor Robb, we have time for one last question, and then we're going to have a 5-minute bathroom break.
Okay, potty break time.
Potty break. Go ahead, Joe.
Hi, I'm interested in having a portfolio of rental properties, bringing the cash flow. I don't have a pile of cash laying around where I can just go out and buy a ton of houses or apartment complexes. What would you say is the best, quickest way to start acquiring properties?
Partnership would be one. So you could pay people for use of their credit, or you could partner with them on the deal for being the money. You're the labor, you're the one that's out there hustling. Like I just had a client in town this week where he's got tons of money. So he's done 5 spec homes. He pays the person that finds the deal, manages the deal, handles everything with the deal, 1/3 of the profits. And that person gets paid last. He gets paid 2/3 for putting up the cash. So there are people out there that have more money than they have time, and that's what you're looking for. If you've got more time than you've got money, there's where a partnership can be born.
Sorry, if I can. You mentioned last night in Vegas you were selling the house, I think for $450,000. You did the round robin thing. I was just curious because you said you financed the deal. Was that like an owner financing thing, or did you have a mortgage on the house where you?
I had a mortgage. But when I
like
turned around and sold it, I did a seller financing. So I basically just had them pay me, and then gave them a contingent title, basically. So as long as they made their payment, it was their house. But if they didn't, I had the house. Deed in lieu of foreclosure.
Doesn't that violate the due on sale clause with the mortgage?
Yep.
But as long as they don't know about it, it doesn't matter, right?
I don't care if they did know. I've never seen that actually triggered, and I was willing to take that risk because it was just a home that I didn't want to have handled. So you could just do a lease option and avoid the due on sale clause. And lease option, just you're leasing it, they have an option to buy, they have to buy you out. The thing is, I didn't know what it was going to sell for, so I would have to do a prepayment penalty that would be big enough if they decided to buy, or wait long enough where the mortgage went down far enough that when they bought, I wasn't still holding a note or carrying back any money. So.
Thank you.
Great. Well, let's take our 5-minute break. We'll see you back in 5, and we're going to get this wrapped up.
In a real 5, only 5. I'm bringing the heat, so you better come right back.
He's bringing the heat. He can feel the airplane.